Hello, and welcome aboard a very special edition of the Gallant Says podcast, live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, and facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Monday and Thursday nights at 6 Central Time, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And if you ever have a question, gallantsays@gmail.com. You can ask me anything that way. It is January 13th, 2024. Technically, what's the time? Technically, the time is 11:10 Central, but that's not the fucking time. That is not the fucking time. Guys, you know what time it is.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Thank you, Clay Walker. I need to hear that one more time.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
For the fifth time in franchise history, your Houston Texans, our Houston Texans, are on to the divisional round of the playoffs after a 45-14 mollywhopping of the Cleveland Browns today. I just got back from NRG Stadium, watched the game in the press box, talked to players afterwards, and I've been to around 100 games at NRG Stadium, preseason, regular season, a couple of playoffs. That's the most fun I've ever had. And I didn't have a sip of alcohol until this glass of Pendleton that I'm having right now. From start to finish. And we all know the reason why this one is so much different than all the other playoff games that we've seen at NRG. That mess of a game against the Bills where Deshaun Watson rallies the troops at the last minute, but honestly, it was a messy fucking game before that. Brock Osweiler beating Connor Cook and the Raiders. The J.J. Watt cat on the goal line against the Chiefs. A couple of wins against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this one was the top. And if you were there, shout out to you. NRG Stadium delivered today. It has not been that loud since 2011 and 2012. The entire Bill O'Brien era. It never got to what you heard there. The crowd was amped. There were very few Browns fans there. They were trying out new things. Texans, swarm. Texans, swarm. You had a moment that legitimately gave me chills. They started playing Don't Stop Believing, and everybody brought out their cell phone flashlights and was waving it. It was awesome. I didn't want the game to come back from commercial break. If you were watching it on TV, you didn't get to see it. I legitimately had goosebumps. And the reason, though, for this being different is not just the crowd at NRG Stadium. It was CJ Stroud. And look, I think the votes are already in for NFL MVP, and we'll see who ultimately wins it. The NFL honors. I'm not going to watch an award show. I don't watch the Golden Globes. I don't watch the Oscars. I only want to watch something if someone's going to get slapped in the face, like Chris Rock getting slapped by Will Smith. That's the only reason to watch it. But I do wish that this would be a part of the resume for CJ Stroud because he was fucking nails in this game. And we're talking about against supposedly the best defense in the NFL. You can go take a look at some of my videos on YouTube and on Twitter and on Instagram and look for some Browns fans responding. Because I was told by these people about all these made-up names in the secondary, not named Denzel Ward. Oh, it's the best quarterback tandem and group in the NFL. Oh, Myles Garrett. What the fuck did they do today? Get smoked by CJ Stroud. That's what they did. So let's go through. First drive of the game. Not ideal, but mainly because there was a moment where CJ Stroud hit a wide open Dalton Schultz with a beautiful pass, and Schultz just dropped it. The drive ends a couple of plays later where Stroud throws a hospital ball to Noah Brown. I don't think Brown returned. You're thinking to yourself at that moment in the game, oh, shit, this might be really difficult. And I think most of us did, right? I mean, the Texans have been hard to predict all season long. They've lost a couple of games against teams they shouldn't have. And yes, they only had Case Keenum under center for that game against the Browns the first time around. But, I mean, Joe Flacco and the Browns were moving the ball at will. And third and fourth drive of the game, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the Browns did move the ball at will. But then the second drive happens. And, I mean, the play that CJ Stroud made, maybe more credit is due to Nico Collins on it. But it's 3rd and 6. He's under pressure. He just throws it straight up in the air. Collins had beat his guy and made an incredible adjustment from looking over his right shoulder like this to looking over his left shoulder, coming back to the ball and catching it, set the Texans up in the red zone. Browns made a nice play defensively on 3rd down on a throw from Stroud to Robert Woods. It gets deflected. So it ends in a field goal. But the Browns answer this one with the touchdown. This is when David Njoku catches that pass down the seam, burns Steven Nelson on it, and you're like, okay, we might be getting that Joe Flacco again. But on the next drive, Stroud hits John Mechie for a 27-yard pass down the right sideline on a wheel route. And he ultimately has a touchdown set up for him by some masterful play calling, I thought, by Bobby Slowick, because on the beginning of the drive, there was a sweep for 29 yards by Devin Singletary. On the goal line, they fake the sweep. They run a screen to, not on the goal line, but inside the red zone, they fake a sweep to Singletary there. They throw it back to Nico Collins, and Collins does what Collins does really awesome, which is catch and run. He's awesome after the catch. I think he's number 1 or 2 in the NFL in yards after the catch. I'm going to have to go check that, but he's, especially after contact, the guy's incredible. Next drive, because the Browns scored again, and you're like, okay, this is going to be a barn burner. Right away, 76-yard touchdown pass on a catch and run by Brevin Jordan. I asked Brevin Jordan about it after the game, and he was like, yeah, I just kept my knees going, and all of a sudden, it was just wide open. It was weird. A bunch of Browns over-pursued him. They're out of bounds. I thought when they were coming off of coming out of the out-of-bounds area, I thought that those were players that had run onto the field that weren't on the play before the play began. The one thing I think CJ Stroud's going to want to have back in this game, the 5th drive of the game, it's 3rd and 13. The Texans are around midfield. CJ Stroud had Nico Collins wide open. I mean, he's wide open by like 10 yards, and he overshot it. So the Texans go 3 and out. But right before halftime, 6th drive, it ends with a bootleg to the right. CJ Stroud throws it back across the field to a wide open Dalton Schultz, 37 yards for 6. Beautiful pass. And it was a bailout that got them to that point. A bad pass interference call on the Browns. It was probably just as much contact from Dalton Schultz with the guy who was interfering with him on that play. But they scored there, and the offense didn't really need to do anything after that at all. But it was an incredible performance by CJ Stroud, and I know the MVP votes are already in. But if you're coming away from Saturday night, we've watched this all season long. We know what this is. But if you come away from Saturday night not thinking CJ Stroud's already one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, I don't know what to tell you. And if you don't think he's a legit MVP candidate, I don't know what to tell you either. I mean, he was so good in this game against a Browns defense that has Myles Garrett, that has KOJ, number 6, who's a really fucking good player. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I just know he was all over the place and has a really good secondary. And, I mean, Texans had their way with them. It was incredible. And, they've struggled against good defenses this season. So, we talk about CJ Stroud. I will say this is one of those games that's going to potentially get Bobby Slowick hired. If you've taken a look at some of my videos from earlier this week, I do think the Texans should just give him a raise. I don't think it'll be that hard to do. Let's read some comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant says, King Ruben says, number 1 defense, my fucking ass. Word Deuce, look at all the swearing going on. I love it. I can't do this on the radio. Word Deuce says, fucking A. Shelton, the goddamn Texans did Fuck yes. Rick DeLeo. Go Texans. Jeremy Vera. Let's go H-Town. King Ruben continues. Texans can go toe-to-toe with any team in the NFL, bar none. I'll pause for a moment because the next matchup for the Houston Texans is going to be either against the Chiefs in Kansas City if the Steelers somehow beat the Bills Monday. They play in Baltimore if the Bills win on Monday. That one would be an interesting rematch. You did see them early in the year. CJ Stroud did get a taste of what the Ravens have to offer, but there's just two possibilities for the Texans right now. And both of them are on the road, which is a bit of a bummer. Thanks for abso-fucking-lutely nothing, Miami. Anyway, what else do we got? More comments. Skeeter 2 times says, Swarm. Hell yeah. Swarm is cool now. Thought it was kind of dorky going into the year, but I love it. Texans, Swarm. Texans, Swarm. Loved it. Shelton says, what are the odds on Stroud being the number one consensus quarterback in 2 years? Consensus is tough. People are going to stick with Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be a lot of old guard. He's going to have to win like 2 Super Bowls for people to say that he's the consensus number one. And people will still, I think, push back and argue Mahomes. But at this moment in time right now, with the down year Jalen Hurts is having, I think with the last couple of seasons that Josh Allen has had, right now with Joe Burrow being injured, okay, it's open. But I do think next year when Joe Burrow is healthy, that Burrow's and Mahomes, it's going to be them however you order them. I ordered them 1 Mahomes and 2 Joe Burrow. More comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. Word Deuce says drubbing. Well, it was a drubbing today. Drub-a-dub-dub. CJ Stroud drowned the Browns in a tub. I'm like Andrew Dice Clay. Joe Martinez, let's MF go. Nacho Ramirez, ultimate hush for the haters. How many haters were there? Were there a lot of haters at this point? I feel like most Texans haters have hidden or changed their tune, which understandably so. I don't mind the people who were skeptical about this. There's been some people coming after me. And by the way, I predicted them to be 10-7 going into the year. I did. But there's a lot of people that are getting mad at me. Oh, you changed your tune on that team. Yeah, they've played really well this year. That's what you do. I react to what I see. You know, a lot of people are all about predictions. Anyone can make a fucking prediction. I've said this a million times. Like me, 10-7. I don't deserve praise for that. I don't. Anyone can make a prediction. I, as a journalist, but really just an idiot that loves sports, that for some reason someone decided to pay to talk about him, I react to what I see in the moment, and I live in the moment. And, you know, we can talk about what happens down the road, and we can talk about what just happened. I'd much rather talk about what just happened. I can react to that. Predictions are dumb. Like, you don't know what's going to happen on a game until the game actually starts, you know? Skeeter 2 times says, we lit. Oh, yeah. Well, let me take another sip. Pendleton whiskey. True Western tradition. Also, we're mixing our uppers with our downers. No, none of that. This is a nice coffee. HEB, Texas Pecan. That's my go-to. Sports Hall comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. We beat them up and get their first pick. That is the funniest part about all of this, isn't it? Because now the Browns pick will be higher than the Houston Texans pick. And honestly, it's funny that we I think vote for the awards before the regular season is done, but the biggest argument against D'Amico Ryans for Coach of the Year was Kevin Stefanski. When you win like this, and you're this focused, and it's a young football team. I know it's Joe Flacco under center for the Browns, but he had played pretty well. And there were moments in this game where he looked good. You take a look at his numbers after the game, outside of the 2 pick sixes, which were big. I mean, 34 of 46 for 307 yards. It was a respectable performance by Flacco. The problem is he throws the 2 pick sixes essentially back to back, you know? And then the game was done at that moment in time. Like, I don't know. I don't know when the Browns quit, but it was probably late in the third, early in the fourth. And this was a body bag game. This thing was over quick, but I mean, I think D'Amico Ryans locked up the public opinion Coach of the Year award. And look, there's a lot of guys who have played at a high level of college that are on this program. They've got so many guys from Alabama. CJ Stroud, obviously, at Ohio State has played at a high level in big games before, too. But I was talking with a friend from another city, and he was saying, well, the Texans are probably just happy to be here. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to be the case. And the focus to win a game this easily. And yeah, there was a moment in the first half where it looked like it was just going to be a shootout. But to finish it, especially the way that it did in the third quarter, like that, I mean, that is just a focused fucking team. And, you know, Kansas City, I didn't get to watch the Chiefs game today. The Chiefs winning 26-7 does not surprise me at all. That team is the most focused and has arguably the best defense in the AFC. Yeah, over that of the Browns. And going up against Kansas City would be very, very hard if that's what ends up happening. But they were super focused today, and D'Amico Ryans deserves a ton of credit for that. More comments. Myles Garrett was a complete non-factor. Did absolutely dick in that game, says King Ruben. You know what? I brought this up on my radio show on Friday because we saw the All-Pro voting, and Myles Garrett was an All-Pro. And if you've been listening to Laramie Tunsil the last couple of years, Laramie Tunsil wants to be first-team All-Pro left tackle. And I think he had a strong case for it this year. He was consistent. A lot of false starts, but today, and I'm not like a Brian Baldinger or some of the other guys who study offensive line film, but today, Laramie Tunsil was awesome. Awesome. And maybe he got away with a false start or two. They didn't call much, the referees, in this game. It was a largely penalty-free game, and maybe the penalties favored the Texans, which is surprising. Kind of cool. But Tunsil was great today. That's why Myles Garrett didn't do anything outside of maybe assault Kaimi Fairbairn. I looked down and I heard that on maybe the last kick that he had hit him, and that Andre Ware said after that happened, like, yeah, maybe it's time to pull CJ Stroud. David C. says, we going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I hope so, but I'm not going that far yet. A lot of people talking shit about the Browns defense. Sports Hulk, a Browns fan, said they beat us and now we give them our first round pick. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, they got Deshaun Watson though, right? It's fine. CJ's freshwater jellyfish. Let's get naked. Super Bowl, baby. Brian Vincent, who do you think the Texans will end up playing? Also, missed you at the Christmas party at Nick's place. What happened? I went back home to see my family. Am I allowed to see my family? But I had to fly home a little bit early to see my family in Connecticut. I am bummed out that I missed a party. It is what it is, you know? Can't go back in time. If I could turn back time, if I could find a way. So you can ask questions, youtube.com/PaulGallant, twitch.tv/Gallant says on Twitter as well. Brian Vincent asks, who do you think the Texans will end up playing? And we still have to talk about the defense eventually. Well, Steelers, Bills. Who do you think is going to win between the Steelers and the Bills? I mean, the Steelers have Mason Rudolph under center. I do think it's a very poor reflection on New York that they couldn't figure out how to play this game. I lived in Syracuse, New York. It snows as much in Syracuse as it does in Buffalo. And obviously they aren't playing NFL games there, but we never had classes canceled because they would salt all the roads and everything would be fine. But I guess the governor of New York said, hey, okay, well, we can't do this. But I think the Bills are going to win on Monday. And that's the game to pay attention to. So if the Steelers pull it off, great. They play in Kansas City. Baltimore will be an intriguing matchup, especially with them coming off of a first-round bye. The last time the Ravens had a bye, they lost to the Titans. If you remember, a couple of years back, that was the year Lamar Jackson won the MVP. And by the way, he might be winning the MVP again. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul. This is a great question by Stan Taco. Do you think you'll love the Texans as much as you love the Patriots? I will say, and don't hate me, because I am a bit of a bandwagoner, but I follow the strong is like the cute way of saying it. I jumped on the Astros bandwagon. That has a little bit to do with my feelings about the Boston Red Sox and the way that they treat the players that help them break the curse, the coaches that help them break the curse. That's a tough one. I haven't lived in Massachusetts since I was 14. That is the only thing that really holds me to where I was born. But I will admit that there have been moments where in Texans-Patriots games, specifically in 2018 when I was working at the Texans flagship, where I know I wanted the Texans to win that game. I honestly couldn't tell you. If they played in the playoffs, I guess that's really the only way that I would be able to tell. But I will say, I have really come to like Houston sports teams, and this Texans team in particular. Like CJ Stroud in my life, right after Tom Brady leaves my life. Pretty nice fix, right? So I guess I'm tap dancing around the answer. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to root for two teams more than I root for the Patriots and the Celtics. So the Rockets, like, I don't think it's ever going to happen for the Rockets. But I don't think it's impossible for the Texans. How about that? Does that make you happy? YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant Says. On Twitter, @Gallant Says. JAM says, bring on Baltimore. Loy says, Texans expectations will be through the roof next year. Yeah. And it's going to be hard to match it because they're going to be playing the big boys. They had a very favorable schedule this year. There was no Kansas City. There was no Buffalo. There was no Miami. And Miami obviously struggles against teams like teams that are good, but you had a pretty favorable schedule this year. You did play the Ravens, and the Ravens handled you, but that was the first game of CJ Stroud's career. You didn't use Tank Dell on that game. I did want to play a couple of pieces of audio because I did go in the Texans locker room after the game so that you guys think that I'm like this cool, like awesome reporter. Here is a conversation that I had with Nico Collins about CJ Stroud getting MVP chance in the middle of this game.
Legendary, man. He's special. He deserved it. You know what? He deserved it, man. He deserved everything, for sure. There's one dude that's calm and collected, you know, but the job not finished. I'm not done. But we're going to enjoy this win, man. Definitely. It was a huge win for the city. Definitely for this team, man. We deserve it. But we got to get ready for one more game.
Nico Collins is great. I can't believe how good he has been this season. The best, though, take about CJ Stroud potentially being the MVP, that came from Texans tight end Brevin Jordan, who had that 76-yard catch and run for a touchdown.
So, man. I mean, I understand the NFL is big on, like, you know, not handing the MVP to rookies, but, like, you guys just see what that dude just did to one of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, the dude is a beast, man. Like, I don't understand why he's not in the conversation for MVP. I honestly think he should be the front runner. I think he's having a better year than a lot of guys in the NFL.
So there you go. That's Brevin Jordan. I thought Brevin Jordan was awesome after the game, speaking with him, and I hope to speak with him a little bit more. Nico Collins also had this to say for all those people who are shitting on the Browns secondary in the comments. Nico Collins unintentionally did before being respectful. It's always funny to hear a guy like talk about dominating in the opposition and then at the last second catching himself. Here's Nico Collins.
Yeah, not really though. Yeah, but
to set it up, I asked him, were you surprised by how open you were getting against the Browns' vaunted secondary?
yeah, not really though. Yeah, but not really. I feel like it just come down to, man, just preparation throughout the week. You know, defense gave us the look we wanted, and we attacked it. You know, can't hide it.
That's where he realized.
Yeah,
that was where he realized, like, oh yeah, I did kind of just shit on them.
Defense, man, credit to Cleveland, man. You know, they solid edge rushers, solid secondary, man. You know, them boys special. You know, we know this game wasn't going to be no handout. We know we had to come to play, and that's what we did today.
Let's catch up in the comments section. You can join on Twitter @Gallant Says, youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Texans versus Cowboys or 49ers for the Super Bowl. I would love to see it against the Cowboys. That would be something else. Coog Blaze asks if he can come over yet, Paulie. No. Unless you bring Pendleton whiskey. Appreciate the likes. Appreciate the subscriptions. This is the most people I've ever had live with me on my channel. Appreciate every one of you hanging out. We came close to 200 total during the Astros postseason. Brian Vincent asks, what do you think Deshaun Watson was thinking on the sideline? Well, I think Deshaun Watson wanted to leave because of the off-the-field shit. I don't know if he knew that was coming before he demanded the trade. But to defend him a little bit, the organization was an absolute mess. And it took a while to get back to where it is now. Things have gone so poorly for Watson on the field from injuries and as a player and off the field too, that for him to predict that this was possible, I think it would have been very difficult. Madison Medina asks, you think we were going to offer a long-term contract to Dalton Schultz? I don't know. The problem with Schultz is you got to ask yourself, can you get more at the position for less money? And I think, a game like this from Brevin Jordan will make some general managers, I don't know if this is the case for Nick Caserio, believe that they can get away with what they have. But that's one of the tricky things that we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. Whenever the Texans season ends, hopefully after a Super Bowl, we're going to be talking about the cap space that they have. And they have a lot of cap space, but they have a lot of guys coming off of the books. Dalton Schultz is one of those guys. Shout out to Pablo watching this from Colorado Springs. Larry Footsack, my gal Dez says, Paul! People are asking where the cowboy hat is. I can't put the headphones on with the cowboy hat. That Bobby Brown lookalike guy from Cleveland is eating his words now, says David C. I don't know who that guy is. I don't. I do know there was that one guy who was the Deshaun Watson, like, truther, and acting like there was, like, some sort of racist campaign against Deshaun Watson, and then, like, had this long video that was, like, talking about all the other times where the NFL's been, like, low-key or high-key racist, but it didn't actually bring up, like, that Deshaun Watson's been accused by 24 different people. Okay, let's talk about the defense. We'll continue to get through your comments, and I appreciate all the comments that are in here. We'll try to go for a while. The Texans defense had a couple of moments in this game where you're like, oh, shit. What's up with all the big plays that they give up? David Njoku has that catch down the seam. That other guy, their tight end, Harrison Bryant, had that big 47-yard catch. They score touchdowns on back-to-back drives, and you're like, man, they're going to have to outgun Joe Flacco, who, for whatever reason, just keeps on playing well against the Texans, much like all these other rando, shouldn't-be-good quarterbacks like Zach Wilson and Desmond Ridder and Bryce Young's only good game and Baker Mayfield, among others. But the game changed. There was a back-to-back play sequence where the Texans forced a 3-and-out. Part of it was due to my guy, Christian Harris, who's all over the place. And when Christian Harris tackles people, it's violent. Like he puts his shoulder into people. He throws people. It was pretty funny to see when I got to the locker room after the game to see a note on Christian Harris's locker that said that he was going to be randomly drug tested. But he had a great game. And then the unsung hero of the Houston Texans defense came in. This is a guy that they found on the side of the road, essentially. Brought him in, and he has really contributed since joining. Derek Barnett. Barnett gets a sack. It's a 3-and-out after that sack is complete. And then the very next drive, or 2 drives later, the Browns were moving the football to open up the second half. They get that big catch and run. Was that the drive that they got that drive? No, Harrison Bryant was earlier in the game, but they're moving down the field, and they got a first down. And Derek Barnett gets pressure and hits Joe Flacco as he throws it. Ball goes straight up in the air, right down to Steven Nelson like it's a punt. And Steven Nelson just ran up the right sideline, and there were so many blockers. 82 yards, touchdown. And now you're like, oh, wow. This is a pretty significant lead, huh? It's 31-14? Are they about to run away with this game? And then right after that, very next drive, Browns are at their own, like 20 or something like that, and it's 4th and 2, and they decide to go for it. And Christian Harris, who almost had a pick six the last time that we saw the Texans play at NRG Stadium on New Year's Eve. He came so close to getting like a 99-yard pick six against the Titans. He finally gets his pick six. And I mean, he's a great athlete, Christian Harris. And I like hearing him talk. I think he's insightful, but also low-key funny. If you remember the game where Blake Cashman had 19 tackles, I remember I was like, what'd you think about him getting all those tackles? And he says, Jesus Christ. It just made me laugh because he's a man of God too. Like it's very funny to, and listen, I have no issue with people taking the Lord's name in vain. People have an issue with me doing it, and I try to do it a little bit less. I'll try to do it a little less going forward. How about that? Defensively, more guys to give shout-outs to. Derek Stingley, who shadowed Amari Cooper most of the game. It's interesting to hear that on the broadcast, the radio broadcast, because that's not something the Texans do. The Texans have been kind of resistant to it when asked about it. They say we don't do it, but hey, after you almost give up 300 yards receiving to Amari Cooper, maybe you got to change things up. So Stingley shadowed Amari Cooper most of the game, and Amari Cooper, 4 catches for 59 yards. Huge step in the right direction after the dominant game that he had in the first matchup between these two teams. And Stingley had a deflected pass. Stingley is awesome, guys. He's had a great year when healthy, and he just won Defensive Player of the Month. And for those who don't know the numbers, he was allowing a 1.7 passer rating against over the last couple of games of the year. 1.7. That's insane. So he played well. And Steven Nelson, the beginning of the game, not great for him, but he bounced back from the big play, got that interception, deflected 3 passes. And I thought those two, who are a underrated cornerback tandem, I thought they had a very good game. And the rest of the Texans defense, they shut Joe Flacco and company down. 11 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks in the game, 5 deflected passes, and 2 interceptions. Let's read some more comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter @Gallant Says, and Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Jam says the O-line did a marvelous job. Right, you are, Jam. Milan Lave, 21. If in case the Texans reach the AFC title game, can Tank Dell return? I would not expect it. That looked like a very serious injury, and one that I think will take an entire offseason for him to get back. I would not want him to rush back. Muscali, on a scale of 1 to 100, how confident are you with the Texans making it to the Super Bowl? I'm 101. Damn. Confidence. It's a tricky word. I am very confident in CJ Stroud. I do think, though, that the AFC is a tougher conference. The Chiefs are still alive. The Bills, for now, are still alive. And the Ravens are still alive. I think all 3 of those teams would beat the Texans head-to-head. Now, if we're talking about like how many times they would win in a head-to-head matchup out of 10 games, that is an even better question. But 1 to 100, Milan Lave says 75. I'm going to say 17. I know that's probably going to be frustrating for some, but I'm just being honest here, okay? Next weekend in Kansas City, going to be around 25 degrees. Is CJ used to playing in cold weather from his Ohio State days? Not that cold. That's really fucking cold. We got some Super Bowl predictions going on. Again, you know what I feel like about predictions. Everyone's got one, just like everyone's got a mouth and another hole. Tien Tron Min says, the Texans played clean football for the first time. You're right. I was impressed by the lack of penalties because they were getting penalized a shit ton. And that was probably a focus point during the week. 3 penalties for 20 yards. Now, there were some penalties that they could have gotten called for that they didn't get called for. So just something to keep in mind, but I thought it was very impressive. WTX_hobby says, I don't think either team want to see the Texans roll into town next week. We are going to be a tough out. I'm agreeing with you there. They will be tough. No one wants to play this team right now. Diane Davidson comments, CJ is definitely used to playing in the cold. Again, not this level of cold. This level of cold is historic that we're talking about today. And 25, I doubt that it's been that cold in November in Ohio. Right? Because remember, the college football season ends in late November. This is a different kind of cold. More comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. WTX_hobby says, the Texans don't even know how good they are yet. We don't want them to know how good they are. You got to keep them level-headed, you know? Pendel Gadio says, what up, Paulie G? What up to you, Petin? I don't know if I said your name right. Sorry about that. Look, you can think about the Super Bowl, though, but guys, we can think about this. So there's a couple of people saying, oh, you gotta focus on the task at hand. You're not playing in this game. Relax. You're allowed to speculate. This is not jinxing anything. I would say I always feel better going into a game for a team that I'm rooting for when I feel a little bit uneasy, a little bit nervous. It makes no sense, though, to feel that way, right? Like, it has no actual impact on the game itself. Sub-Zero Hero. How much in the super chat for you to oil yourself up? Well, I need oil. Also, I don't know. $5,000. $5,000. I think YouTube might take the video down, but $5,000. Not that expensive of a date. Sim Sam's checking in from Minnesota. Shout out to you. Hope you're not frozen. I heard that North Dakota was like negative 63 or some shit today. More comments. YouTube.com/PaulGallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant says. WTX Hobby asks, do you think the Texans go all out in free agency this year? I don't think they have as much money to play with as we hope they do. Marshall says, what up, Paul? Great game. Go Texans. Who was at the game? Because that was the best game I've seen in person. Part of it, again, is the CJ Stroud effect. And comparing it to other Texans games I've watched. Like, there's been a lot of bad ones if you watch the very beginning of this stream that were playoffs games. And I didn't get to go to the 2011 game. I had to stay back at the station, and I was watching it on a TV that I swear to God was like this big. It was like probably bigger in like front to back than it was like this, you know? And I'm watching it in this room, and I was cutting up highlights. Oh, God. Not fun. I remember, like, I think I heard the Mark Vandermeer call of the interception before I saw it on the TV. Did kind of change the experience a little bit. Sometimes when you work behind the scenes, it's not fun. Carlos Rodriguez comments, Texans D for reals, giving good to the oppo in the field. So that's a rhyme. I like that. Sub-Zero Hero really wants me to oil myself up. MJK316, today was a great day that we deserved and we earned. Hell fucking yeah. David C is that's the fucking guy. Yeah, Garrett Bush from Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Making fun of CJ saying he's just old enough to get his library card. Well, he is young. He is young. But yeah, that guy sucks. That show's interesting. It's like a bunch of guys sitting around and they're not that informed. They have like a video about like Garrett Bush's backstory. It's cringe as fuck. Anyway, Paul Lawrence, did you see Watson at the game? I did not see Paul. Or excuse me, I did not see Watson. I heard that Roger Goodell was in attendance. And honestly, I'm thankful I didn't see him. I had been thinking about things that I would do if I passed by Roger Goodell, because I'm a Patriots fan, and he besmirched my Lord and Savior, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick. Everyone spies. Spygate's such a load of shit. Jimmy Johnson admitted to it. Mike Shanahan admitted to it. John Madden admitted to it. Everyone filmed signals. Patriots just did it from the wrong spot of the field. Did they break the rules? Yes. It wasn't that big of a broken rule. Any Astros fan in here, you guys should identify with the Patriots. And Roger Goodell was an absolute slime ball doing what he did to the Patriots, acting like they did some absolutely heinous crime. Deflategate, 4-game suspension, even more bullshit. I was thinking to myself, like, what's the most annoying thing I could do to Roger Goodell? If I saw him, I definitely would have stared him down. I think he's my height. Could I take him? I wouldn't do that, though. But I was thinking about, like, what's the most dastardly thing I could do? And I thought to myself, probably, like, walk by and crop dust him. And hopefully it would be, like, a silent but deadly. Because I don't know if the NFL security would, like, tackle me like he's the fucking president or something like that. Paul Lawrence, Texans, swarm! Texans, swarm! Who do I want next? Asks Ever Alvarado on Twitter. Baltimore or Kansas City? Baltimore. It's Mahomes, and the Chiefs' defense is really good. I know the Chiefs' offense has had some issues this year, but you've played Baltimore before. Is Baltimore from week 1 to the divisional round as different as a Texans team quarterbacked by a rookie is from week 1 to the divisional round. I think that the ladder has changed more. And one of the things that I think helped the Texans out in this game, you go from the Browns game on Christmas Eve to this one, you got a pretty good feel for what the Browns want to do in that game. They had to win that one, where the Browns did not get a great feel for you. They went up against Case Keenum. You were without 2 of your top pass rushers, and Jonathan Grenard and Will Anderson. Angel Tapia. Galat looking all professional, cleaned up for those post-game interviews. Sharp. Hell yeah. This is the most Texas-colored shit I got. I figured there was a chance that they might not play, so it's like a light blue, which they're supposedly adding to the uniform next year, and a dark red. So I appreciate that. Can we give a shout-out to Cal and Hannah for stepping up and getting it together? Yes. And Carrie can fuck off! At least, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with this ownership guardianships thing, but can Carrie wait until the fucking off season? Oston Espinoza says you suck, Paul. Don't we all in some way? That's the only negative comment so far. I'm kind of disappointed. I was hoping more people would be mad at me. Texas 22, going back to what we were talking about with Tank Dell. Yeah, there aren't any IR spots anymore either, but I just don't think he's going to be ready to go. Oh, man, lots of comments, and I appreciate everybody joining me. Seriously, this has been a lot of fun. This is the most people I've ever done a YouTube show in front of. And, of course, we'll be doing more conversation about the Houston Texans on Monday on my radio show. George Ochoa asks, can we label CJ Stroud a superstar? Well, I think you got to have – there's too many superstars these days. Just go look at the NBA. Everyone thinks they're the best player in the league. You got to win a Super Bowl, I think, to really cement that. But he's definitely, one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I suppose the counter-argument to that is that Joe Burrow, because of how cool he is probably a superstar. Word Dude says I'm cheap for saying I'm a cheap hoe for $5,000. Listen, $5,000. I want to present something to oil myself up that's actually possible, Bradley Beckman, thanks for doing this. This is way better than meditation. It would have put me to sleep. Go Texans. More comments. Pearland Steven. I don't know who is running the Houston Texans Twitter account, but they are in the midst of a winning streak. Yes, they have done a great job. Also, Ben on the Top had a great montage leading up to the game. Now, then he got a little bit yeah, if I was doing the Texas social media, I would take it to the next level. And I was like, okay, relax a little bit. But his montage that he had was pretty fucking awesome, too. Carson Berry, the energy that this team has is completely different than any Texans team in the past. 2011, you're down to TJ Yates. If they had Matt Schaub going into the playoffs in 2011, I'd entertain the idea of them maybe being able to beat the Patriots. Of course, they lost to the Ravens, and it was a noble loss. That, I think honestly that loss to the Ravens was one of the most impressive Texans playoff games ever. Because, TJ Yates almost threw 6 interceptions, and still behind what I think is the best offensive line in Houston Texans history, left to right, Dwayne Brown, Wade Smith, my guy Chris Myers. Wade Smith's also my guy. Right guard Mike Brizell, right tackle Eric Winston. They helped Arian Foster run for a shit ton of yards in that game. And Arian Foster obviously was awesome. He's one of the best Texans ever, too. So that team, you could maybe argue, 2012, it just fell apart. In November, I would have felt the same way, but the Letterman Jacket game, after they got smoked by the Patriots at a game that I went to, and sorry, I did root for the Patriots in that game. I did root for them. But after that game happened, I think a lot of people were like, I don't know about that. And they went from being the 1 or the 2 seed and having a bye to having to play a wild card game. They didn't play that convincingly with the game against the Bengals. That was the first Texans playoff game I went to. They didn't play that well. It was kind of a sloppy game. So, yeah, I'm with you. Lero asks, can Nico be a possible superstar? Nico's progression this year has blown my mind. Seriously, he deserves so much credit for the jump that he's made this season. And obviously, CJ Stroud is a big part of it, and Bobby Slowick or whatever. But, that guy with the size and the speed and the ability to run after the catch, the ability to run over people that he has, sure, I don't think it's impossible. That is a guy that the Houston Texans need to give a contract extension this offseason. I'm going to officially label that as a must-do. I think that Nick Caserio will do it because they drafted him in the 3rd round, but they got to give him an extension. First year that they're eligible to give Collins an extension is this offseason. Luda comments, I by no means know everything about defense, but what are the downsides of always having a spy? It has to weaken the defense. I'm assuming this has to do with maybe a Lamar Jackson matchup. We'll say they did a pretty good job holding Lamar Jackson in check in that game. The downside is that there's theoretically a guy that isn't rushing after the quarterback or isn't covering one of the receivers. It's really like, hey, this guy is 100% on the quarterback, so that means that there's going to be a little bit more open space for that quarterback to throw to, and theoretically, a receiver has a better chance of being open. Fizzle. Patriots and the Astros have Darth Vader vibes, and we love it. Yeah, I like Bad Boys. Bad boys, what you gonna do? Oh, Chester Pitts was sitting next to Roger Goodell. Chester Pitts is the nicest guy ever, and it bothers me how nice he is because I'm a piece of shit. Man, I wish somebody that would have actually been annoying to Goodell was sitting next to him. Like me. Mac34, I'd leave my wife and kids for Hannah. Well, I mean, who wouldn't? Oh, God. What else do we have? Herbert Wilson says the Browns were robbed. Yes, they were so robbed. And by robbed, like they were robbed by like a group of Huns or Mongols, because the whole city got fucking murdered. Mountain of skulls afterwards. Mark Anthony Rizzo. Everybody doesn't film playbooks. That's never proven. Mark Anthony Rizzo. Patriots couldn't cheat anymore, and they found out. Yeah, 20 fucking years of winning, you dipshit. Shut the fuck up. Fucking idiot. I hate the people that are like, oh, they were cheating the whole time. They won for 20 fucking years. Are you fucking on crack? Why do I have to do this all the time? Explain the ins and outs. Like, I know a lot of people like can't handle it with their simple little minds, like about like what was going on there. But like, fuck off with that bullshit. They were fucking killing everybody. What 19-0? Excuse me, they didn't. Sorry, I gotta. Damn it. Gonna have to flagellate myself for that. They went 18-1 that one year. But I mean, it's 20 years of winning. It was cheating. Look how many different players they had there. Everyone had this paranoia and loves to make excuses for themselves for getting their asses kicked. Nope. See, this is why I will always probably be Patriots #1, because of the passion I'm showing right here. This person's a troll. So, you know what, Mark Anthony Rizzo? I'm almost sorry for saying all those things. Almost. Blah, blah, blah. What do you think the weather will be like in Baltimore next weekend? Tornadoes. Hurricanes? Tsunamis. I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist. What do you fucking want from me? Blah, 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 blah. Scooby-Doo-wop. I'm looking through the comment section. Osan Espinoza says, yeah, give him hell. Mac34, same. As the Astros cheated, got caught, then kept on winning. Yes, again, look, there's degrees of cheating. Did the cheating help the Astros? Probably. Did the cheating help the Patriots? Maybe a little bit. I don't think it helped as much as it was painted as it helped. And yeah, asterisk all you want, but like I just think that the actual impact of the cheating was very limited. But I don't want to end talking about the fucking Patriots. I'm sorry. Your boy has ADD. Final thoughts. This season is more of a success than I ever thought could be possible. Not just because CJ Stroud, they found the quarterback in this year's draft class, and maybe the quarterback of the decade in the draft of the 2020s. Mahomes is the one of the 2010s. They found the guy. They brought back a head coach that everyone likes because he played here, that everyone loves to play for, clearly. But I think more than anything, the best part of this season, and specifically today, after a regular season where there were lots of games where there weren't a lot of Texans fans in attendance, there were lots of Steelers fans and Saints fans and Browns fans and Broncos fans. Today was the first day where it felt like everyone was back. And you guys really, if you went to the game, you guys nailed it. You did a great job. And I hope you had fun. I was so jealous. When we're in the press box, we got this fucking plexiglass in front of us. We can't hear you. And I wanted to be out there. I wanted to go get absolutely crunk, do hood rat shit with my friends. Alas. But I hope that you guys had fun. I hope you guys are still having fun tonight. I'm going to go out somewhere. I don't know where. Should I wear the Texans starter jacket? Duh! But I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching this for the first time, you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe. We try to do this Mondays, Thursdays, 6 Central Time. It's at youtube.com/PaulGallant or twitch.tv/GallantSays or on Twitter @GallantSays or facebook.com/PaulGallantSports or on Instagram as well @SportsGallant. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. I have a radio show as well, which you can hear on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 live, 10 to noon. Less swearing. Still fun. I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. I'm so happy to be back here in Houston, and I'm so happy that the Houston Texans are back. And I hope you guys are too. This is a fucking awesome day, an awesome night. Go out, have fun, get drunk, have sex, live the best night of your lives. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your weekend. Peace and